Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So today I'm going to be taking a look at the Transformers Studio Series Rise of the Beast Core Class Terracon Freezer. Let's start off by taking a look at the packaging, and then we'll get into the review. So of course up front we have Transformers on the side, we have the Rise of the Beast logo, two Terracon symbols there, and Terracon Freezer in text. An open window displaying the figure and the packaging. We have a really cool artwork shot of Freezer in what looks like a museum, and there's the Rise of the Beast logo at the top there as well. If we do turn to the side, there's a really cool up-close shot of Freezer with Core Class in several different languages with Studio Series on the side and a Terracon symbol. If we do turn to the back, he transforms in 12 steps. There's several product shots, one of Freezer in his robot, his turret, and his handheld weapon mode. And on the final side, we do have another artwork shot of Freezer in his robot mode, looking very menacing and cool. And that is pretty much it for the packaging, so let's now get into the review. Here we have Freezer in his robot mode. Let's start off by taking a look at the details, starting at the very top with that head sculpt. Love the huge spike sticking out of the top of the head and the four orange eyes looking very menacing and creepy. Really love the silver for the teeth, looks pretty sharp and menacing as well. And if you haven't already noticed, this figure has four arms, which I think is the coolest. I just love it. And yes, this figure, I'm just going to say, it's a pretty weird figure. There's four arms, the legs are super kind of chicken-like, really weird angles, but I like it. It's a pretty cool figure. And I really do like the details of this almost kind of rusted metal bronze detail they put on the forearms and the chest and the legs. That just looks so cool in my opinion. I think this definitely reminds me of the Kingdom Fossilizers. I don't know why, it just really reminds me of those figures. And I really do like this entire kind of skeletal ribcage section they actually put at the stomach there. That actually looks pretty cool in my opinion. And again, the legs, super weirdly angled, definitely resembles almost a chicken design, but looks pretty cool. And there's some more of that kind of rusted metal detailing at the foot itself. Unfortunately, since he has so many limbs and so many ball joints, it can be a bit hard to position and place this figure. So if I do have to kind of straighten him up every now and then, I do apologize. Some of his joints are pretty loose, so again, it can be a bit annoying to place and position this figure. But other than that, detail-wise, I'm thoroughly impressed. Unfortunately, accessory-wise, he doesn't come with any weapon or accessory, which, of course, we haven't seen the Rise of the Beast movie yet. So if this figure is in the movie, we really don't know if he'll have a weapon or not. Maybe he'll just use his four arms to fight. We really don't know. But I still think it would have been nice if he could have come with like a pistol or a sword. That is just my opinion. As for, of course, articulation, there is a hinge at the neck, so it can hinge forward and back. There's also a ball joint at the head itself, so it can rotate side to side, up and down. As for the four arms, there's a ball joint at the shoulder and at the elbow, so of course rotation forward and back, out and in. And an elbow bend. There is no wrist rotation or waist rotation. As for the legs, I do have to say, I'm just going to let you know now, on my copy, they're probably the loosest joints of all of them, which is a bit unfortunate because, you know, he uses them to stand, so hopefully they don't pop off. So they can kick forward and back, out to the side as well. And there's also a ball joint at this section here and at the foot, which can kick forward and back as well and rotate side to side. I'm not going to move the position of the foot because, again, as I said, this figure can be a bit annoying to position and place. But that is pretty much it for articulation. I'd say pretty good. It would have been nice maybe if there was some wrist rotation for all four arms, so he could put in some more, you know, dynamic poses, something like that. But other than that, pretty good for a core class figure. As I've said in previous core class reviews, I'm typically way less picky on these figures because they're only like $12, $10, depending on where you buy them. So definitely more high standards for the deluxes and the Voyagers. But let's now get down to a few comparisons. Here he is with the Studio Series Rise of the Beast Core Class RC, which I have to admit, going into these two Core Class figures, I was expecting to like RC more because I really never watched that many reviews of Freezer, but when I got him, I was thoroughly impressed. I have to say he's probably the better Core Class figure between the two, and her review is definitely coming very soon on the channel. As you can see, size-wise, he's a pretty big, chunky figure. Of course, he does have four arms, so that probably makes it seem even bigger, but he's a pretty decently sized Core Class figure. And now for another Core Class comparison, I thought I'd compare him to a Legacy Evolution one, just to show you this is one of the more bigger Core Classes from the past wave of Legacy Evolution. See side by side. And I will do another comparison in just a sec. I have to reposition the camera to show you a comparison with the other Terracon that was recently released. And now for one final comparison, here we have Freezer with Battle Trap, the two Terracons that we have released so far. I do know Scourge is coming out pretty soon, I think like May or June or something like that, but they do look pretty cool next to each other. And I will make sure to do another comparison with Battle Trap in his trucker mode and of course Freezer in his turret mode. And that is pretty much it for comparisons and his robot mode, so let's now get down to transformation. So now for transformation into the turret mode, what you're going to do is flip to the back of the figure, just bring this panel out, and then just bring this entire section out like that. You can actually flip the entire barrel or turret section through and bring this over the head of the figure, and then collapse this panel that will cover the head and bring that barrel up like that. Then what you can do is bring the top arms back. You can actually rotate the entire form around using that ball joint. Same thing on the other side, so just rotate that around, and then you're actually going to tab the top arms with the back ones. So there is a tab right there, and there is a slot right there, and that will actually form kind of the stand or the little legs for the turret mode. So just tab those in like that. Same thing on the other side, so just tab those in like that. As for the legs themselves, they kind of just show in the instructions just to scrunch them up like that. No really tabs or anything, you just kind of have them there, and then you just position the little legs however you wish. Of course, I could do a much more dynamic pose off cam if I had the time, but for now that actually looks very cool. So let's take a look at the details. Starting at the very front, really nice barrel section done in silver. Unfortunately, it's not blast piece compatible, but again, love that kind of bronze rusted detailing still visible in this mode. I think it looks really cool. Love that silver, yellow there, and the little stands, of course, they used to be the arms, but I think it works pretty well, and we do just kind of have the legs sticking out the back. I'd say that's probably my biggest complaint for this mode, because they really don't do anything to them. There's no transformation, no steps or anything. They kind of just sit there, so a bit lazy in that aspect. But as for everything else, overall looking pretty cool. So now for some comparisons, here he is with the Studio Series Rise of the Beast Core Class RC, which her review is coming very soon on the channel. Looking pretty cool next to each other. As you can see, size-wise, it's a pretty big turret. Just, you know, side profile there. It's a pretty big turret. Pretty cool. And for one final comparison, here he is with a fellow Terracon, that being Battletrap. I think they look pretty cool next to each other. And I will bring out Battletrap in just a second for his fourth mode, which of course is his gun mode. But that is pretty much it for the turret mode. So there is actually a third mode, which I'm not sure if you already know about, but this figure has 4 modes, and the next one being is actually this sort of combination. So in the instructions, it actually shows for the third mode, you can combine Freezer and Scourge together in his trucker mode and actually have this entire back turret section. So it still is a turret kind of like this, but there's a few steps difference. You know, it's just a few transformation steps, which I'll show right now. So in the instructions, it doesn't really say anything about combining Freezer with Battletrap, so I guess it's not a feature, but of course, once I get Scourge in his review, I will show off that feature. So for the transformation, it's actually very simple. What you're going to do is tab the legs in, so there is a slot right there and a tab right there, so it's just going to tab in like that. Same for the other side, so just tab those in, and then you can split the stand like that, and then what you're going to do is rotate this entire section around, and there is a tab right there and a slot right there. So you just gotta align that up just like that, and then do the same thing on the other side. So just separate the stand, rotate the arm around, and then you're just gonna tab that into place like that. Like that. A bit hard to align sometimes. There we go. And just straighten everything up. As for, of course, the front arms, these actually just kind of become the stands just like that. Flip the barrel out, and there we have the sort of second turret mode. So you really can't do much with this now. As I said before in the instructions, it really doesn't say anything about combining it with Battletrap. This is the mode. So for now, just going to show it off. You know, here is the separate, you know, second turrets. So somehow this will combine with Scourge. I'll show it off whenever I get that figure, but for now, this is pretty much all I can do. But really nice details. Again, love that kind of rusted metal bronze color, looking very cool there. But let's actually get into the final mode, which is the handheld weapon mode. So let's go do that. So now for transformation into the final mode, which is the handheld weapon mode, what you're going to want to do is get the front arms here and just use that ball joint and rotate the entire forearm back. And there is a tab on the arm, and there is a slot right there. And then it's just going to tab into place just like that. And then do the same thing on the other side. So just rotate the forearm around, and there is a slot there and a tab right there. and that will just tab into place just like that. And then you're going to flip to the bottom and bring out this peg, or of course the handle. Just flip it out like that, and there we have Freezer in his handheld weapon mode. And of course you can have any figure. You could get some of the Legacy Evolution figures, some of the Studio Series figures, and I'm just going to bring out Battle Trap right now and have him wield the weapon. So of course there is a peg right here and a port right there. I suggest to have the arm fully extended and just plug it into place just like that. And there we have Battle Trap wielding the weapon. Unfortunately, his arm is a little bit loose, so it doesn't really fully want to support the weight of the weapon, but still looks pretty cool. And again, actually, in the instructions, it does show Scourge wielding Freezer in the instructions. So whenever I do get that figure, I will also show that in his review as well. But overall, that looks pretty cool. Just unfortunate, again, that it fully can't have the arm all the way extended because the weight isn't, it's a bit heavy for the arm. But still, that looks pretty cool in my opinion. And I actually do have a possible theory, as I actually did mention this in the separate Battle Trap review. If you watch that review, you know what I'm about to talk about. But in that review, I did mention, in the trailer for Rise of the Beast at the very end in that whole volcano battle, Battle Trap had a weapon, but of course with the figure, he never included a blaster. So maybe possibly in that scene, he was using Freezer as a weapon, and that's how he was firing those laser bolts or blasters, whatever you want to call it. So maybe in the movie, we'll be able to see this feature firsthand, which I think that would be pretty cool to see. But that is pretty much it for the fourth and final mode. So let's now get down to the final thoughts. Now for the final thoughts for the Transformers Studio Series Rise of the Beast Core Class Freezer. I overall really do like this figure. Starting in the robot mode, really like that kind of bronze rusted metal design that they put on the arms, the entire chest, and there's actually this really cool section. You'll see it when it turns around where the stomach is. It's actually kind of a skeletal rib cage section, which is really well designed. There's actually a bit of gunmetal gray here and there, and I really do like the 4 orange eyes. It's a pretty creepy, really weirdly designed figure, but I actually really do like it. And the design of the legs is pretty cool as well. Almost a chicken design, but I think it's pretty cool. And there's some more of that rusted bronze design on the feet as well. I'd say overall the figure in the robot mode is pretty good. I'd say my only 2 complaints is unfortunately he doesn't come with an accessory, which I actually had sort of an idea because he does turn into a turret, and maybe if they wanted to include an accessory with this figure, they could have had the entire barrel section from the weapon mode be the accessory, and then of course you would just tab into place for the other modes that involves that accessory. That's just a thought. I think maybe they just didn't want that to be a separate piece. They just wanted it to be a permanent part of the figure, which I understand, but if they really wanted to include accessory, I would be perfectly fine for that to be one. And it would actually have 2 uses. You could store it in his hand right now, or you could store it in the back, but that's just a possible theory of what they could have done. Another complaint is the joints, because pretty much every joint is a ball joint, so some of them are very loose, especially the legs. The top of the legs are super loose, especially when positioning the figure, so sometimes they can pop off. I'd say another nitpick of mine is since he has so many ball joints and limbs and stuff like that, it can be kind of hard to place and position because a lot of stuff can collapse and kind of pop off. So a bit of a hard to handle figure, but still design wise, I'm thoroughly impressed. He's actually a pretty big core class figure. I compared him to RC and the Legacy Evolution Grimlock, so he's a pretty decently sized core class figure. I wanted to mention that because the last core class figure we got was the 86 Rumble, and a lot of people were like, okay, the price of a core class is like 13 to 15, but Rumble is pretty small, so I just wanted to show you that this is a pretty decently sized core class figure, and I think you're definitely getting a run for your money. And now for, of course, transformation into the other modes. He does have a turret mode, which I actually do quite like. I think it's pretty cool. I just think it's a little bit lazy with the legs because they just kind of stick out the back. They don't really do anything. It would have been nice maybe if those could have formed another little stand section for the back, because you do use the 4 arms for the stands on the side, which I think is actually pretty clever. I think it's pretty cool. The barrel, again, looks really nice silver. Would have been nice if it was Blast Beast compatible, but unfortunately it is not. As for the third mode, it actually doesn't really have much use right now, especially for me, because I do not have Scourge. If you have the Studio Series Rise to be Scourge, you can actually use this feature or this mode. So for the third mode, it's actually sort of a second turret mode, slightly different from the first one, the main mode, but a few steps transformation, but you can actually combine it to Scourge. There's actually an entire instruction section in the instruction booklet, or a few steps of transformations. You can actually combine it with the back of Scourge and tab into place. Of course, he also does have a handheld weapon mode, and it does show in the instructions you putting that in Scourge's hand, but since it's a weapon, you can put it literally in any hand. I showed it on Battle Trap, and I think it looks pretty cool. So again, whenever I do get Scourge in his review, I will show that feature of tabbing Freezer into the back of Scourge's truck mode. I'm assuming probably there's some specific tab or connection of how you do it that I know of. I don't think there's a certain or set way you can actually attach Freezer to the back of Battle Trap. I don't think that's a possible feature because, of course, he has the entire, crane and mace ball section, so I really don't think that would work. I have kind of seen a few people just place it on top of Battle Trap, which if you wanted to, you could, but I really don't think there's any tab or set way Hasbro designed that for it to work. But still, I think it's a pretty good figure. Again, would have been nice if there was an accessory and the joints could be a little bit tighter, but I actually really do like this core cost figure. And to be truth be told, when I went into these two core cost figures, RC and Freezer, I was expecting to like RC more, but I think it turned out I actually like Freezer more. That is just my opinion. Let me know what you think of this figure in the comment section down below. Hope you enjoyed this review, and I'll see you